as a kid, even when I was young, I was a big fan of paranormal, spooky, scary thing. I love horror movies, right? All that sort of stuff. So as a kid, I was always looking for that stuff. So every time, I see a shooting star as a kid, or I see the blinking light from a radio tower off in the distance, I'm like,
oh,
Mom,
yeah,
look!
totally.
And, and of course there's so many, like, no, that's not it. So it's like, I tried to find some of those things. You know what I mean? I would try and be like, I don't know, that light up there is moving pretty weird. What if it's not a plane, Mom? Like, you ever think about that? Like, and so it's like I was looking for those things. So it's not like because if that were the case, I could have fabricated a ton of things in my brain and tricked myself into believing that I saw some other thing.
Right. Sure.
I could have tricked myself 100 times into being like, oh yeah, you've seen a UFO, you've seen whatever. Remember that shadow in your house that one time? It wasn't because the car lights on the outside hit the clothing rack the right way. It was a ghost. Like, there's nothing else that I've ever, even as a child, that I've like locked in that I'm like, oh no, I think I saw something. Oh my gosh, finally, a paranormal experience. This is the only one that I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it feels different.
Leaves you on a little bit of an island, right?
Yeah.
I would say I would feel the same way because I've had a few paranormal experiences, and knowing that there are other people that have very similar stories, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not. This wasn't just I didn't have a slight TIA
while you were sleeping.
That was strange.
You've probably shared them on the show at this point.
No.
I would love to hear, even if it's short versions.
You want to hear it?
We haven't gotten too much deep into our own personal experiences.
I would.
yet.
I know I'm throwing my podcaster hat on here for a second. But I would love to hear at least a story from each of you of something.
I have a couple. I'll do some quick ones. I'll do the good one that is my personal experience, but okay. So this is 2013. We're living in our last rental house. My wife and I, we had been married in 2012, so just got to New Year, rolled over. I had been working nights, 7 at night to 7 in the morning. My wife as well at the hospital. I switched day shift for the first time ever in like 6 years. So I'd never worked days. She was still on nights. So, at nighttime, I'm going to bed by myself. Excuse me. I have the house. I'm Kevin McAllister. I'm home alone, There's no dog. There's nothing. It's just me. And so I would go out. I'd go down to Curio and meet up with a resident and have a cocktail or two and walk home and go to bed. And so the house we lived in is in German Village. It's old. It's, 1800s, early 1900s. The staircase that went up to our bedrooms goes up, and then it's split at the top to like our bedroom and then the guest bedroom. And so I'm in our bed, and our bed is facing towards the door. And I think I had the hallway light on. And I was just kind of laying there going to bed and just nothing crazy, just thinking about, hey, I got to go to work tomorrow, et cetera, et cetera. And I've had sleep paralysis a couple of times before when I was a kid, all throughout the years. Maybe one every couple of years, I'll have a really good one that's like, okay, I don't need that again. But I'm like laying there, and I thought I saw something, like you're saying, like thought I saw a shadow. But then I'm like, you're crazy, don't. I was always a very scared kid, didn't like scary movies, was always, don't let me in the basement by myself. Like, I want to be so I've always had a natural fear of that. And so as I've been an adult, it's hard to get rid of that. Sometimes you got to keep yourself grounded. Like, not every shadow's a ghost, But I'm laying there, and all of a sudden I'm like, no, that thing definitely moved. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of strange. So I'm like, I'm just going to lay here and I'm going to fall asleep. It'll be fine. And that's when I felt like the blanket's lifting. And I could feel the weight depress onto the bed. And now I'm like, there is somebody. It felt like somebody crawled into bed with me. So I'm like, I'm kind of petrified. I think it's sleep paralysis, right? Because at this point, I haven't moved since I first saw this. I'm laying there and I'm just watching.
You think it's sleep paralysis.
At this point.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm still like, I've
that's
gotten my
typical.
last end of like, okay, you're having sleep paralysis. That's what this is. Okay, cool. You're awake and all this is
Right.
And that's when it spoke to me, and it said, come closer. And it was like right in my ear, and I freaked out, and I ran out of the house. Up, down the stairs, out the house, and it's like 11 o'clock at night in the dark, and I'm just out there in my shorts, no shirt, just bare feet. I'm like,
what'd the voice sound like?
Just the typical creepy, come closer, like whisper.
Like a harsh whisper.
Kind of soft, but just that kind of almost that like the others.
Yeah.
Just that whisper. And where I first heard a similar story like that was Dan Aykroyd's. Mm-hmm. That's what he put in the Ghostbusters even. Like the whole like the scene where he's in the bed and the ghost is in bed with him. And
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
he's getting a little. It was
Yeah.
nothing happened to me, and that's why he's in his story. He even said like it felt like the ghost just wanted to cuddle, so I just laid there and let it cuddle with me.
You ran out.
I ran the hell out of that
You,
house.
Dan Aykroyd let it all
And
happen.
that's when I was like, oh, this isn't sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
And that's what solidified it. So I was like, I don't know where to go with this. Either I hallucinated all
German
the
Village is an old area.
I don't know where to
Who knows
go
what
with
could have
it.
been
It
there.
was
Right.
weird. That's the
That's
only thing I've ever
wild.
had there.
Man.
But it's also after I married before I married my wife, and the first time I spent a night at her parents' house, she let me know that her parents' house in Cleveland, Ohio is haunted. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. That haunted,
this
there's
is
ghosts,
good.
ooh.
Yeah.
Whatever. I've never seen anything. It's like the first time I saw a grizzly bear, I'm like, that's a bear that can eat me. I don't need to see that in the wild.
Yeah.
It's the same thing you were saying earlier of like, I'd like to see Sasquatch, this, that, but safely, right? I'll see a ghost, but safely. Like, just don't freak me out.
Take me
too
to a
much.
paranormal zoo.
Yeah, yeah. So we go to her house, her parents' house. We went there because it was her mother's uncle's funeral. So I'm there to meet her parents for the first time around a funeral. I'm going to the funeral, etc. And she's had ghost encounters there before. She's seen full body apparitions walk through her house type stuff. So I'm like, whatever. So go to bed that night and we're laying in her spare room at her house. It's her old bedroom. And her dog at the time was still alive, Jasmine, right? So Jasmine's sleeping in her dog bed and Kim's asleep and I'm there. And I mean, I hear like just fingernails rapping on the floorboard. And I'm like, that dog is down there. I look over, that dog is dead asleep. And I'm like, that noise cannot... I'm very sensitive to noise as well. It's almost problematic. So I know it's not the dog. And it just kind of stops. But about 2, 3 in the morning, it woke us up because it hit the closet door so hard it woke up all of us. The dog, me, my wife. There's nothing in the closet that had moved. But it, was audible enough it woke all of us up at once. Because she's heard typing on the keyboard downstairs. Like I said, she's seen a full
experienced
body
a lot.
walk through the house, basically.
Yeah, she
Gentleman in a flannel jacket and
she
beard
doesn't
and
like talking about it. She grew up in that house, and it's like
Wow.
really
So I
still affects
quickly
her.
believed. Like,
yeah.
something's
Dang.
going on here, whatever it is. But
Man.
so ever since then, man, every time we spend the night there, you won't catch me out like in that living room by myself at
No,
night because it's a tri-level, so there's a downstairs
Okay. Yeah.
and all that darkness and
That's yeah. Little,
You know?
little dungeony. Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's wow.
those are my encounters as well as I have them. Are they documented? No, but
Right,
again,
right.
from personal experience and kind of being pretty hard on evaluating
Mm-hmm.
encounters, incidents. Again, like I'm this isn't really happening. I'm just seeing shadows. You're having sleep paralysis, and now
Shadow
what's
people.
my explanation?
Yeah.
Shadow
It's not
people.
sleep paralysis. I shouldn't have been able to move if it was sleep paralysis.
Right.
Because I've had the same experience with sleep paralysis when I lived by myself, of waking up on the couch to seeing like a disheveled woman in a house robe with a butcher knife running around my house, and I was like, you want to talk about anxiety and fear and not being able to move, but if you know it's sleep paralysis, that's the only thing that's like slightly comforting. You know it's not real. That's the guiding force, right? Like
It's
if you
like
can't
a
move
dream
or say
kind
anything.
it's
Yeah.
kind of like a dream
You
state.
can open your eyes and everything.
Yeah.
It's weird. Your dream is overlapping reality in a certain way.